Hi everybody, this is Eddie Ghabour with Key Advisors Group, and today I want to talk to you about why price doesn't tell the whole story when you're looking at an individual asset. You know, it's interesting. Many times I'll hear someone or they'll come up to me and say, hey, I bought this particular security because it's really cheap. And I'll say, well, what do you mean by it's cheap? And they'll say, well, it was trading at this price here, and then today it's down to this level. So they're just looking at the price of an underlying security, and that's how they're determining whether it's cheap or not in their eyes. And this is why I try to educate investors on price doesn't really tell the whole story. And many times when you look at stocks or any type of underlying asset, when it breaks through an all-time high, many times it has the legs to go much, much higher. So I can rationalize sometimes buying an equity or piece of real estate that actually, from a price perspective, is considered high, but has more upside than the asset that has broken through resistance levels on the downside that investors now think is cheap. So when you're looking at a security or some type of investment, if you're only looking at the price of that underlying security to determine whether or not it's a good buy or not, you're really missing the bigger picture. I mean, you have to take a look at so many other dynamics within those securities that you're looking to buy, right? First off, take a look at what sector it's in and whether that sector is more of a bullish trend or a bearish trend. If you happen to be in a sector that has just broken down to a bearish trend, in my opinion, chances are if that stock or security has really dropped, it may be going much, much lower because that particular sector is really going to struggle. And I mean, you can look at whether it's energy, whether it's retail, whether it's technology, whether it's micro caps, small caps, whatever it is, you can find so many time periods where it looks like, oh, this is going to be a good buy because it's down 10 or 15%, and then it drops another 10 to 20% to the downside. So understanding the sector it's in and how that sector is going to perform, depending upon what type of economic regime we're in, is critical. The other thing is the company itself, okay? And I think one thing that investors kind of overlook is what the balance sheet of a particular corporation looks like. You know, we tell young investors that one of the keys to success is trying to manage your debt load, right? Because if you have a family that has so much debt that all their income is going to just service that debt, they're put in a really tough position financially. And a lot of times that's when someone can go bankrupt, is if you're carrying on too much debt. Well, the same thing happens in corporate America, right? Companies that carry on a lot of debt, it might look just fine when we are in a booming economy. But if we go into a recession, a lot of times those companies that are over leveraged are the ones that are going to take it on the chin and get hit the hardest. So knowing what sector it's in, whether it's bullish trend or bearish trend, understanding the balance sheet that if you have a company that has a lot of debt and it happens to be in a sector that's in a bearish trend, my goodness, then that cheap price that you think is cheap may be getting a lot cheaper because they're going to have a tough time if we're going into a recession. The other thing is look at the management, right? I think when we talk about management of a firm, I'm a big sports fan, so I like to relate it to sports. If you look at coaches out there, all right, so Bill Belichick, all right, I'm not a Patriots fan, but one thing I can say is I have a tremendous amount of respect for what he's been able to do as a coach, right? There are some coaches that have the ability to succeed no matter what their lineup looks like. And it's the same way in the corporate world. There are certain leaders that just find a way to win. And so the leadership of a particular company is also critical when you're evaluating the type of company you want to buy. And that's why, again, price doesn't tell the whole story. Because just like there are certain coaches that win no matter where they go, there's also certain coaches that lose no matter where they go. And it's the same thing with management. You know, if the management team that is running a company has a track record of poor performance, and they are in that company that you're looking to purchase, then I think you need to take a second look at it. So again, when you're evaluating a security, you need to take a look at whether that sector is in a bullish trend, bearish trend, or neutral trend. You need to look at the balance sheet, right? And again, if a company is over leveraged and they're in a bearish trend or we're heading into a recession, that could be a red flag. And just as important as point 1 and 2 is the management team, okay? Remember, certain managers, just like certain coaches, find a way to win consistently, and certain managers and certain management teams find a way to lose. So you can get away with poor management if they're in a bullish trend and there's a strong balance sheet, but if they're in a bearish trend or we're heading into a recession and they have a lot of leverage and that management team is very, very poor, then you really need to think twice about purchasing that security. So hopefully I have shed some light today on some things that you can think of and put on the top of your mind when you're considering whether to hit the buy button. And those things hopefully support the reason why price does not tell the whole story. Because again, sometimes you're better off buying something that you think is expensive because it may have a lot more upside than something that looks cheap, because sometimes it may be cheap for a reason, and that reason is usually not a good one, okay? So that's it for today. Hopefully you got some value out of today's video. If you have any questions, please shoot me something in my inbox, shoot me a question in the inbox, and I'll be sure to address it during the next video.